What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aiden, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be discussing another video about why I believe Billy Donovan has proven that he is not the right head coach for the Chicago Bulls. Now, at the end of the day, it might have been one of the worst decisions that the front office has made in its recent history, because not necessarily at the time Billy Donovan wasn't the right head coach for the Chicago Bulls, but it was mainly because they rushed into it to a point where they never really got to find out for themselves whether or not Billy Donovan could handle the situation around the Chicago Bulls. Now, at the time, people were furious at the fact that there was no communication, didn't really like that no one really spoke to us about it. It was kept in secret, in silence, no one knew about it, and it's even a talking point till today that people still bring up, that the Bulls did a secret extension of Billy Donovan without telling anybody. So at the end of the day, with all that being said, I do feel like it is now important to discuss, with more time going by, why this has proven to be a very, very bad situation for the Chicago Bulls. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and whether or not you think it was the right or wrong decision to give Billy Donovan that extension at this point in time. If you felt a different way in the previous moments at the beginning of the season when we kind of already did it, I can understand that from that point of view. You said something that was a couple months ago now. Obviously, things have changed in the last couple of months, and that's okay. And in all honesty, if people have changed their mind to Billy Donovan, I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever by that situation. And before I get any further into this video, this by no way, shape or form, I guess, gives the players a free pass. Because at the end of the day, I've already spoken a lot about these players, to be honest. A lot more about these players than the coach. Because the players, at the end of the day, I do believe are not necessarily the most strongest minded players in the NBA. I do think they have a mentality barrier that prevents them from competing at the highest level. When we see consistency against good teams but inconsistency against the bad teams, and you just see an overall instability in this Bulls team, you can't always blame that on the head coach. One of the sayings that I like to say in relation to the Chicago Bulls is that it takes two to tango. It's been a saying that's been going on for years and years and years and years, probably before I was even born. You can't necessarily have a good squad, like basically the squad doesn't necessarily know how to play well with each other without a good head coach. But at the same time, when it comes to the head coaching situation, if you don't have a good head coach, then the players won't respond to you in many ways. It does take two to tango. So again, I just feel like it's very, very harsh to blame one or the other. I think it comes down to both. But we speak about the players on a regular basis. It's always in the game reactions. We speak about the players and how bad they are. There's not many opportunities where you get to speak about the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. So this is my time to do so in a little bit more detail. Here's a couple of reasons why I feel like it was the wrong decision to extend Billy Donovan at the point that they did it. One of them I've already briefly mentioned. They rushed into it. At the end of the day, at that time, Billy Donovan didn't really deserve an extension. We were still up and down, inconsistent Chicago Bulls and whatnot. And I understand if they did it at the end of the season, by the off season, because we made the playoffs for the first time. You want to give him a contract extension because things were really, really positive for the Chicago Bulls. Yes, we had a dramatic downfall, of course, but the whole season in general last year was a positive one. And I don't think anyone can dispute that when we made the playoffs for the first time in years, when we won a game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and when we ended up just having a season when we were above 500. We haven't had that in a long, long time for the Chicago Bulls team. I understand it from that point of view, but at the start of the year, doing it and not telling anybody, I think that's a huge mistake by the Chicago Bulls. You're keeping the fans in the dark, and that's something you never really want to do. You have to be open and transparent with the fans, because we're a big part of this franchise as well. Yes, we don't make the signings. Yes, we don't play the games, but we are showing up to the arena every single night to support this team. We are one of the most loyal NBA fan bases in the NBA. We always, every single year, are up there in attendance records in the NBA. It's been like that for so long, ladies and gentlemen. So it's very, very harsh to keep the fans in the dark. But also, when we heard about it, we obviously saw this Bulls team struggle. We've seen this Bulls team struggle even until now. They've not found their footing yet. And that is something that you just can't see happen at halfway through the season. If you don't find your footing now, yes, you can still probably find it. I'm not saying you can't, but it becomes less and less and less likely you will find your footing in the NBA if you don't get it over and done with halfway through the season, around 50 games into the season. So I felt like they rushed into it. He was on his last year of his deal. I think this was a proving point for Billy Donovan. I think everybody wanted Billy Donovan to prove himself this season, just like the players needed to prove themselves this season, and he didn't. And when we saw that he didn't prove himself, then then we see that we extended him. Yes, Bulls fans will be furious about that, but that's one big reason why I feel like Billy Donovan is not necessarily the right head coach for the Chicago Bulls, because we rushed into it, and I think we've proven at this point in time that it's just not working out with him in the reins of the Chicago Bulls. That's one thing. Two, I don't necessarily think the relationship is very strong with Billy Donovan and the players. Now, one thing a lot of people can praise about Billy Donovan is that he usually is a player's coach. Even guys that you could question the relationship with right now, in Zach LaVine, has always said he's a player's coach. He wants to do right by the players. He wants to make sure the players are happy, because a happy team equals happy basketball and whatnot. I understand it. I get it in every single sense of the word. But you have seen a couple of times this season where relationships are being fractured between Billy Donovan and the players. Even the front office has gotten involved in the relationship with the Bulls and the players. It's been a very, I wouldn't necessarily say a toxic season. I don't think it's been toxic in terms of the relationships. I still think the players are very close. I still think Billy Donovan has the respect of the players altogether, but there are forms and relationships starting to crack with Billy Donovan and the Chicago Bulls team. And the fact that the Bulls give up so easily, the fact that the Bulls have a weak mentality, or that the Bulls can't handle pressure situations and can't handle intensity moments, I do think in some small way that has something to do with the relationship cracking between Billy Donovan and the players, and the reassurance that everything will be okay and Billy Donovan can get us out of this situation with his coaching. I don't necessarily think is there by the players or by Billy Donovan himself. So I think relationships obviously are starting to crack a little bit. And you've seen that with some you've seen even with Billy Donovan, another thing is that his decision making has been very, very questionable this season, I must say as well. Again, we've went back and relying on small ball now, ladies and gentlemen. We're playing Derrick Jones Jr. at the 5, and then we're playing Vucevic for the rest of the game at center as well. Now, I don't have a problem with Vucevic playing. He's our starting center. He's averaging 17 and 13 or whatever amount of rebounds he's averaging. He's having a fairly decent season by all metrics. But another situation where we're persisting on small ball and small ball alone. You only get to see Andre Drummond if it's desperately needed for 3 minutes of a game where we're either in foul trouble or we're clearly seeing small ball doesn't work. Okay, chuck in Andre Drummond for 2 minutes until Vucevic is ready to come back. What we saw at the beginning of the season with Andre Drummond is that he was playing a lot. Or at least he was playing a lot more than what he is now, and he was able to make differences for this team. Now, again, small ball is a very, very frustrating thing, but I'm not opposed to small ball in certain games. Again, when you're versing teams that like to play small ball as well, like Boston, like what the Clippers kind of did without Zubac, what teams like I can't remember, the Warriors, you know, these types of teams that do play small ball, especially off of their bench. Okay, play small ball, because we can do it. I'm not saying it's impossible for us to win games without it, but you can clearly see when small ball doesn't work, we still persist on it, and that is the most frustrating thing. And I think that's a very poor decision on behalf of Billy Donovan. You have the luxury in this team to go smaller and to go bigger whenever you please, but persisting on small ball all the time, I think hurts this team more than it helps us, and I think that's a poor decision on behalf of Billy Donovan. And it really reflected in that Clippers game when Zubac came into the game. We didn't put in Andre Drummond, we didn't put in Nikola Vucevic because he was getting his rest. We kept on playing Derrick Jones, and it did not work, and that is a big reason why the Clippers were able to come back in that game. Small ball doesn't always work. It's a message for Billy Donovan, and you have to learn to adapt to the times. And sometimes when you have a big center in there and the team with a head coach knows what to do in those situations and knows you're playing small, we're going to go bigger and take advantage of that, you have to learn to adapt to the situation. And I don't think Billy Donovan does that enough. And again, adapting to the situation has always been a problem for Billy Donovan. So a couple of reasons there why I think Billy Donovan isn't the right head coach. And altogether, he's going to be here for a long time. And I truly believe that. I don't think people saying fire Billy Donovan. I can't see it happening because we just extended him. I think again, it's even if they wanted to fire him, the amount of money we would have to give him, it's probably just not worth it for the Bulls to do that, whether we want to see it happen or not. It's extremely frustrating, the situation the Bulls put themselves, and that's why it's a lesson learned for the front office. At least I hope it is. Do not rush into situations where it could come back to bite you. That's exactly what's kind of happened with Billy Donovan. And also, do not keep these things away from the Chicago Bulls fans either, because that is definitely disappointing. The fact that we figured it out from Shams and the Bulls, I don't even think the Bulls ever announced Billy Donovan's extension. Even until now, months and months later, I'm not actually sure that they announced Billy Donovan's extension. I could be wrong anyway. It doesn't really matter. What's done is done. But yeah, these are just some of the reasons why I feel like Billy Donovan is not the right head coach for the Chicago Bulls. Can things turn around? I think there's always an opportunity for things to turn around. Again, with this Bulls team, you still believe in some small way they can turn it around. But ultimately, what you're seeing is what you're getting with the Chicago Bulls. You're seeing inconsistent play from the Chicago Bulls. You're seeing weak mentalities from the Chicago Bulls. You're seeing bad coaching from the Chicago Bulls. You're seeing all these things in front of your eyes right now. And that's what you have to take at face value at the moment. Looking at the future and hoping things can change, by all means, go ahead and live in the future and see if things do change. And I hope they do for everybody's sake. I hope Billy Donovan can turn things around. I hope the players can build their momentum and build their mentality up because they need to. I hope everything can change for this Bulls team. But at face value right now, with around 50 games into the season, I'm looking at this Bulls team, and this Bulls team is almost exactly how I felt it was at the beginning of the season. Yes, that Minnesota game was and the response from that was big for this Bulls team. I understand that. But the response wasn't consistent. And it's as simple as that. It's not been consistent for a very long time. And again, you look at the Paris trip. Yes, the response after Paris was great. But again, what was it? One game that it was great. And then back to mediocre basketball once again. Back to up and down Bulls. The responses that we see are not consistent. And that's because it's short term, because these Bulls players have short memories. They have, again, a weaker mentality of a team, in my opinion. I'm not saying everybody in this team, including our head coach, is mentally weak, but some of them are, I believe. I believe only a few of them have really strong mentalities, and it's really as simple as that. And that does also have some more way to do with the head coach as well. If players are not motivated to play, again, another thing to say before I go, and this is a little bit of a rant and not necessarily always about the head coach, but I remember a quote that Tristan Thompson said when he was on the Kings. And again, people like to give a lot of slander to Tristan Thompson, but this is one of the best quotes I think he's ever provided in terms of a press conference or in terms of the NBA. He said, if you're asking for a head coach to motivate you to play an NBA game, then you should not be playing in the NBA or something along those lines. You should go be playing at the park or something. You should always get yourselves ready to play an NBA game. You should always be able to motivate yourselves. You should not always be relying on a coach to motivate you to play an NBA game. You need to motivate yourself. And of course, a coach is always there to inspire you, to motivate you as well. He's a player's coach at the end of the day. He will try to motivate these players as much as he can. But for the player side of things, if you're looking at, I guess, slandering them for a little bit, I mean, how could you go into an NBA game and feel disinterested? Or how could you go into an NBA game and have Bulls fans across the world target your work ethic as a big problem? And it's not just a one-case scenario that's happened. It feels like a lot of the time there are Bulls fans out there questioning the Bulls' work ethic. And that's not all on the coach. It can't be. But of course, the coach will have some blame to take as well. And usually when teams do go into a bad stretch or bad moments, it's the coach that goes first. But I'll tell you this now. If the coach does go, Billy Donovan does leave the Chicago Bulls team, I hope these players are not far behind them, to be honest, if they're going to provide the same old stuff. Yes, players can always have a chance to change. A coach can have time to change as well, especially when we recently just extended him. But if the coach does go, you can't forget about these players. You can't forget about what these players contributed to Billy Donovan leaving the team. And if they don't change their ways with a new head coach, then it's clearly not just a head coaching problem. So we'll have to wait and see. The future is very much undetermined, and I may be getting ahead of myself because I don't think Billy Donovan's going anywhere, and most of these players are probably not going anywhere either, at least until the off season. So I'll end this video here. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care and peace.